Okay, the first term I want to talk about is cognitive strain. Your mind is working all day long to make logical assertions, to figure out puzzles, to do things at a high rate. Now, what happens is it takes effort to do this, and it takes effort to fight off the emotion that would therefore reduce this logic. So cognitive strain happens when the gas is being held for too long at too high of a rate. So you're thinking, you're problem solving all day long, and this is much like being under the influence or not getting enough sleep. It has the same effect on your mind. It's called cognitive strain. It's when you've put the gas down of the mind, so your logical layer, when you've used that gas pedal too much for too long. The second term we're going to be talking about here is ego depletion. This is the emotions that are happening in our mind, the emotional triggers that are working around us that are constantly reducing your ability to control logic. They attack your control center and they reduce the amount of logic you can have. Ego depletion and cognitive strain work together to create this concoction or this crazy attack on the logical mind, your control center. So you wake up in the morning, your mind is fresh, you don't have the weight of 1,000 ideas in your mind. Clean slate. You have full gas in the tank to put your foot to the floor and to have your logical mind be working at its fullest capacity. So this is why I tell people the morning is the best time to do the heavy hitting logical impact, because throughout the day, you're going to experience cognitive strain. And the more the cognitive strain, the more gas you've used. It's like being under the influence or not having enough sleep. You are simply lagging and cognitive strain starts to decrease the mind's ability. Now comes ego depletion. The weight of emotions all day long start to add up over time. And your control center, which is on your logical side, is being reduced. Eventually it loses control and it can't handle the weight of emotion. So when you're feeling like you can't do anything anymore, your mind is tired, this is what's happening. You're experiencing ego depletion and cognitive strain. Gas down for too long and the weight of emotions, removing your mind's ability to have logical control over any situation. It leads to fogginess. So we just did a 2-part video on how the mind works. Now let's talk about how we can optimize it. So we know that we must keep emotions low throughout the day. I like to see this as intaking the impact of emotions. Say you were to stub your toe. All of a sudden you're angry, pain is at a 10. You have to think of your emotional triggers in life as stubbing your toe. If you stub your toe, you can freak out, you can bang your fist on the counter, you can swear, and you can get really upset, right? And it hurts. Like you stub your toe, it hurts. Or you can just kind of be like that cool guy who walks it off because you're in front of a bunch of people. You stub your toe and it's like, man, that hurt. Move on, and you kind of just internalize it a little bit. That pain doesn't really affect you that much. This is the same way I like to see emotions. You have a choice in how much you let the emotional events of the day impact you. Think of it like stubbing your toe. If you have something crazy that happens, try to minimize the impact it has on you. Try to minimize that impact of, oh my God, I'm so mad because I just dropped my coffee cup, or whatever the scenario is. Man, I dropped my coffee cup. That sucks, but at least I get to make a new one. Try to take that emotional event and reduce the value you give it. This will affect your logical layer, and this will keep you in control longer and sharper throughout the day. So that's ego depletion. We have to minimize the events of emotion and how much they actually affect us. So you need to start having a different perspective on the way you intake information. So anytime you're faced with a tough situation, you have to just take a second, take a breath, and be like, it's not really that bad after all, as your first reaction. Not the conclusion you come to after mulling it over for 30 seconds. That emotional weight, that mulling of 30 seconds, guess what you're doing? You're taking points of logic away throughout your day. So that's the first half of how we do it. The second half of how we do it, which is cognitive strain, is that cognitive strain happens when we have our minds working all day long at a high rate. We get this point where our foot is down to the ground on the gas pedal and our mind is racing. Well, this takes effort to keep it at that pace. It takes a lot of hard work to continuously think at 100%. If you were to just gear down to 90 or 95% and not be trying to think so hard all day long, you could probably coast in that point all the way from 6 a.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. By 7 or 8 p.m., you may be at, 85%, maybe even 80%. But I promise you, if you're working at 100% all day long, that takes a lot of effort. By 2 and 3 o'clock, you're at 80%. By 5 o'clock, you're at 70 or 65%. It's a quick declining factor, where the harder you push, the more you're burning out all day long. So this becomes a combination of reducing the impact of emotion and taking logic and just scaling it back a bit so you're not exhausting your mind all day long. Don't push it to the max. Push it to a very highly efficient state and ride that state all day long. They call this flow state, which I'll talk about in the future.